Weddings are always going to be divisive issues, and we're always going to cop flack whether we do something or don't do something. Someone's always going to be pissed off. G'day there guys, and welcome to another episode of r/AmITheA, backed by popular demand, introductions, and the dogs. Now if you love today's episode, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good content. Let's go. Am I the a-hole for being homophobic by inviting my grandparents to my wedding? Fake names and throwaway account and whatnot. I called the account Am I the a-hole homophobic, but that was because it was an available username. I don't think I'm a homophobe. Now I, 21 male, am getting married this summer. I'm straight, my fiancée is a woman, obviously. I have two older cousins, 29 male and 26 female. Let's call them Mark and Jane, both of whom are openly gay and lesbian respectively. My grandparents, 87 male and 79 female, are unashamedly homophobic. They've attended every straight wedding in the family. They declined invitations to Mark and Jane's weddings because they don't believe that's a real marriage. Here's the problem. Homophobia aside, my grandparents are amazing, hardworking, good people. I intend to invite them to my own wedding. Jane and Mark completely oppose this, and because I'm a bit of a golden boy for the family, they want me to exclude my grandparents from my wedding to punish my grandparents and to promote marriage equality. I refuse to listen to them. Most of the family has taken my side. It's a big family, except for Jane, Mark, their in-laws, and Mark's parents. They call me a homophobe and a terrible person, or beg me not to invite my grandparents. I won't listen to them, but I feel somewhat sorry that I'm not fighting my grandparents for them. I can't help but feel like a bit of an a-hole for that. What do you think? Am I the a-hole? Edit. Thanks for the replies. I want to clarify one thing. My grandparents will be mostly respectful to Jane and Mark if they're all at the wedding. They call their spouses their boyfriend and girlfriend, and don't show that they're bothered by their relationship, unless someone straight up asks them. I should also add that they don't hate Mark. Even though they dodged his wedding, they helped pay for his college tuition and he and his husband's house mortgage. They didn't do this for Jane or Jane's straight brother, because they have conservative views on immigration and my grandparents are immigrants. Comments Trains Blues says, not the a-hole at all. It's possible to be supportive of your cousins and also let that be known, and still invite your grandparents. Seriously, who the hell tosses out their grandparents? I totally get it. I've attended both types of these weddings, and they're both always fraught with conflict. The best way to change minds is not to draw a line and force people on one side of it, like your grandparents do. The best thing to do is to include the people who are close to you, even when you disagree majorly with one part of their lives. Source, I'm an atheist and married a girl, also a non-believer, from a very religious family. The man who married all of her siblings and cousins refused to marry us because of this. He and his wife still got an invite to the wedding, and attended. We are all better people because we invited the a-holes to our wedding rather than turn it into a protest. Controversial not the a-hole from a bisexual woman. I was read as a lesbian for most of my childhood and teen years, and it wasn't until adulthood, after breaking up with a long-term girlfriend, I realized I was bi. Unsurprisingly, because I'm a little older than those of you who self-describe as queer, eye roll. Oh my god, the passive aggression. I was bullied relentlessly by several cousins about it from long before I ever came out. They made family parties hell, and I choose not to associate with them as an adult. That said, I could never even imagine asking my other cousins not to invite those cousins to their weddings. That's just not how it works. Do I side-eye cousins who post pictures in a bar, hanging out socially with those cousins? Absolutely. But disinviting a family from a wedding is a huge deal in my culture. And honestly, I have to wonder how old most of those people calling OP the a-hole really are. Marmalade and Rice says, rather than leave a judgment, I'll give you my thoughts as a gay person. I don't have the ability to think about things through the lens of homophobia aside. All of that homophobia that others can put to the side is always front and center for us. It affects our employment, our safety, our mental health, and a lot of other areas of our lives that would otherwise be normal. But we're queer, so people can't leave well enough alone. I've had people threaten my employment because I'm gay. People didn't even know. Homophobes believe that queer people are less than. You just said they don't believe Jane's and Mark's respective marriages are real. They don't believe they are valid. They don't believe they deserve that happiness or peace of mind. Imagine if your grandparents told you they didn't approve of your marriage and would not attend the wedding. How hurt would you be? To see these people who, up until then, you had such a wonderful relationship with? What about Jane and Mark? How was it to find out that these people wouldn't attend? And is it just the wedding? Have your grandparents failed to acknowledge them elsewhere? Failed to treat them with the same respect they give everyone else? What goes on that maybe you don't see? So now you have the grandparents coming to your wedding, and you've asked Jane and Mark to suck up the reminder that Grandma and Grandpa see them as lesser by the very act of your grandparents' presence, enjoying themselves, laughing, dancing, and etc. Stuff they'd never do for Jane and Mark, who at some point were kids, I assume, who looked up to them. And even if they weren't disowned, you don't get to accept queer people only when they fit in. And by inviting them, the message you send is, I know they treated you like crap, but they don't treat me like crap, so get over it. You've established that your values are only your values insofar as the issue affects you and your own life directly. I know the grandparent situation is complicated, and I know you love them, but they have opinions about human beings tantamount to these people don't deserve rights, or their love isn't real. Do yourself a favor and read up on just what kinds of problems queer couples face without marriage rights, and try to put yourself in your cousin's shoes. Imagine that your own grandparents are the type of people to vote against your ability to see your terminal significant other in the hospital, get power of attorney, assist in other affairs, you name it. Imagine that they would vote to leave you cold, alone, and scared while your spouse is in the hospital because they find your existence and love offensive. And OP, don't downplay it, just because you have the luxury of not seeing it that way. There are wrong opinions. You can argue over pineapple on pizza all you want, but you don't get to have an opinion on whether a person's existence is valid. We are born as we are, but people like your grandparents are born into their opinions, and they can learn. You can't be friends with your friend's abusers, OP, and homophobia is abuse. Debt to Set says, you're the a-hole. Your grandparents are bigots, and that automatically disqualifies them from being amazing people. But if you're good with having bigots in your family and showing that you support their disgusting beliefs by tolerating them, you're telling others that you agree with them, which is why they're calling you a homophobe. That's your prerogative. As a gay man, he's not the a-hole. It's his wedding, he can invite whoever he wants as long as they agree to act civil and respectful. A wedding is a day for the couple, not protests. What happens if he disinvites them and half his family doesn't come? One of the things that all LGBTQ people must accept is that there will always be bigots, and we all need to learn how to deal with them. It looks a lot better to come in and act respectful and take the moral high ground, rather than to make demands on loved ones. Let the bigots make themselves look bad. LGBTQ people don't have to accept that there will always be bigots in their family and that people will be okay with that. None of us have to accept that. Yeah, but if you want to be realistic about it, you do. How you act towards those people are up to you. I know many LGBTQ people who continue relationships with their families despite their not agreeing with their lives. I know just as many people who don't. However, those bigots won't disappear, and there will always be a small minority that hates us. A part of being gay is accepting that and learning how to deal. How you deal with it is up to you and you alone. I mean, let's not pretend that they're good people either. You don't have to, but that doesn't mean you can't still love them, and there's nothing wrong if you continue to do so or choose not to. Every LGBTQ story and experience is different, and we all learn how to deal in our own way. Well, they can and should choose to not go to OP's wedding, because to him, it's clear they are nice as long as you're fortunate enough to not be a part of the group they hate. Alright, we love some spicy stories. Our next post is by user Throw8800, titled, Am I the a-hole for smoking weed when I'm home with my kids? So, a little backstory. 2020 was a crap year for me. And in addition to dealing with the pandemic, I had to deal with some mental health struggles. As a result, I started drinking more than usual and smoking a little more weed than normal. A drink or two a day, a few tokes each evening. My spouse called me out on it earlier this year, so I stopped drinking and smoking for several weeks. I also started working on my mental health by seeing a therapist, exercising, etc., and I soon started feeling myself again. A couple days ago, I had a long day at work, like 15 hours long. It was long, but it wasn't a bad day, and I felt I got a lot accomplished. When I was done work, I decided to toke up. Now, my spouse was gone at the time, and I was home with our children, 3 kids under the age of 10. But they were all in bed, so I grabbed my one hitter, went outside, had a couple of puffs, then went back inside to watch Netflix to unwind. When my spouse came home, they found out I'd toked up, and a big argument ensued. I was accused of putting our children in danger by smoking weed when home alone with them. I was also accused of going back to using weed as a crutch, since I only did it because of my long day. I disagreed with both points, but my spouse is still upset with me, mostly because I did it when alone with our kids. So am I the a-hole for smoking weed when home with my kids? I feel like this is being approached from the wrong angle here. Much like smoking cigarettes or doing anything that your partner disagrees with, you need to set boundaries and have conversations about these things. More communication is needed in these instances to make sure that fights and arguments like this don't happen in the future. And if they do happen, everyone's transparent about what their motivations and their reasons for doing things are. OP knows in this situation that their spouse has a problem with their usage of marijuana. If you had a problem with your partner's smoking of cigarettes, usage of marijuana, addiction to social media apps, like being on TikTok for hours on end, wouldn't you be pissed off if you got home and they were doing that thing that you were disagreeing with and they had said they will stop? If I was the one walking in on that, I'd be pretty pissed off too. There's nothing inherently wrong with smoking weed. I have no problem with that. But if someone goes against what we've agreed on, I have a problem with that. In a relationship, you are a team. You're supposed to be doing what's best for both of you in that relationship. So OP, not the a-hole for smoking weed when home with the kids, but you're the a-hole for not talking about this with your spouse first and being on the same page with her. Where I may be picked apart with this one is where you say you were accused of putting your children in danger by smoking weed when home with them, and also going back to using weed as a crutch, since you only did it because of your long day. I feel like that's a red herring. If a big argument ensued, those are elements of the argument. Those are not the main points of the argument. Am I the a-hole is often guilty of leaving information out so that things favor OP the most. So I'm going to read between the lines here and say that you are throwing red herrings out there. You're trying to distract us from the actual issue. You're the a-hole. Now in the comments, Redheadfire89 says, "You're the a-hole. Smoking weed when you're caring for young children? As a guy who's reading this high as hell in a country that legalized it, I will happily call you an a-hole." Not the a-hole. I think this is an issue that comes from people who don't know what only hitting a couple of times is actually like. It's a natural stress reliever, pain relief. It helps with anxiety, depression, stomach issues, bowel issues, literally a laundry list of items. You're not laid out on the bathroom floor useless. You're a little more calm and relaxed. I mean, when I take one hit, I'm floored. Everyone's tolerance and reactions are different. Same with alcohol. One shot would screw me up and I'd never drink while taking care of children. But for most people, one beer would be fine. Not the a-hole, but going forward, it may be a good idea to set ground rules. If you're not allowed to smoke or drink when the kids are asleep, it needs to be a universal rule. Drinking is way worse than smoking, but if it makes your partner uncomfortable, then it should definitely be talked about and some guidelines set for both of you. All of these people outraged that you had to smoke after they were asleep are in a different world. Many parents have to drink or similar after their kids go to bed. Definitely have a conversation with your partner, though this is more about building good communication. And Ellie Pond says, "You're the a-hole. Not for the act of smoking itself, but for smoking despite the fact that you know your spouse has a problem with your usage. You need more communication about boundaries and expectations. And OP replies, "Thank you for this. Your point about more communications around boundaries and expectations is helpful." Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Friendly reminder that I'm now posting daily on my second channel, Markee 2. If you want to laugh at memes with me, link is down in the description below. On phone, you just click that little arrow underneath the video. I also want to say thank you to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Your names are currently floating down the screen here, and I love to see all of you guys. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate it. If you see yourself on screen, I want you to give yourself a big pat on the back for being amazing as always, and thank you for supporting me again. I do hope that you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever it is you're up to. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.